asking for money, do they? $500 million is still asking for poor folks for more money. I'm disappointed in you Democrats. I ain't got another dime here. Look at me. Tim is getting ready to speak. This is your last chance.
I guess we're ready.
You are listening to the Voice 17104, Worldwide Community Radio.
Welcome to Did You Know? Podcast, your host, Richard Utley, dedicated to the African American viewers. The program is aimed to celebrate African American culture and deal with the real and relevant topics that impact the everyday lives of the African American community through frank and insightful dialogue with local and national influencers. Every day, there is another horrible, discouraging news story, directly or indirectly, impacting African Americans. But we need to look at the shining stars in the galaxy of Black America. It is time to tell our story.
Good evening, and welcome to another Did You Know? Well, first off, I'm just going to start off with, as you know, I said that these next few programs is going to be about politics, and so, as you know, I had Joe Powers on my last program that explained what polling was and gave his views on politics, and we're going to have him back in a couple weeks, and I decided this week I'm going to bring back my roundtable discussion buddies. You know, I had them on before and we talked about some things and people told me they liked it. And when I bring them on, my roundtable discussion buddies, it's about them giving their views, how they see things, not how I see things, because I wanted to get a different perspective. But before we do that, don't forget tonight is the Vice President debate at 9 o'clock. So those of you who didn't know that, now you know it. And those of you who act like you're not informed, now you're informed. So that's the first thing I want to talk about. The second thing I want to talk about, as you all know, I always talk about a little bit of history, and I think it's very important. And one of the things I want you to do, I want you to look at back in 1957. Talking about September of 1957. And I want you to go back and do some research and read about it. It's about President Dwight Eisenhower ordering federal troops into Little Rock, Mississippi. Then I want you to turn around after that. And then I want you to look at 1962, where President J.F. Kennedy finally sent federal troops to force integration to the University of Mississippi. And then 1965, I want you to look at September. President Lyndon Johnson issued what is generally considered the nation's first affirmative action order, Executive Order 11246. But let me tell you why I brought those up. The reason I brought those up, to let you know, that wasn't long ago. That wasn't long ago. So keep that in mind. It wasn't long ago. So those of you who have got amnesia, you need to go back and do your research to see where we are now and where we've come from and where we need to go. So that's why I just think it's so important that we're going to talk about politics today. So I'm going to get right into my politics, but before I do, you know, I was reading an article, and it was a woman that writes for the Harrisburg Patriot News, Nancy Usherman. And she wrote an article a commentary that I just thought that was so good, I just want to bring it up to you, and I hope all of you go out and do some research. And she says, and the topic was, don't you dare say successful women slept their way to the top. it's important for women to build each other up, not tear each other down. So think about that. She also says women are where we are due to hard work. It was never about sexual favors. And I think that's very important because, as you all know, they seem to say that a lot of times when women go up to the top. But think about this. Women had a long way to go. When men were making a lot more than, and when men were making $1, they were only getting 60 cents. They've had to prove themselves for a long time. Just like black folks had to prove themselves for a long, long time. And so I think it's important that we need to stop tearing down each other. And the reason I think that we need to stop tearing down each other is because we all have to live together. And so I just thought, I read that article, so I hope a lot of you, you can Google it or whatever. Just read it. It was very interesting. It's very powerful. It says, ask your grandma, ask your great-grandmother what they've gone through. And the reason I brought it up is, and the reason I brought the other history things up, because sometimes I think that we forget where we are. We think we know where we are now, but we forget where we came from. And we better think about where we're going. So other than that, I'm going to start with my political roundtable because I just think it's so important. So I have my two buddies on there, my friends, Sam Briggery and Chester Murry. We are friends. We've been friends for a long time. And I just asked them questions every now and then. And so I just felt that I just wanted to get their viewpoint too. And I got some topics here that I'm going to bring up. And I'm going to say some things, and I'd like for them to respond to it. The first one is that, you know, I was out the other day, and I was talking to a young man, older young man actually, and I said, you know, it's important to vote. And it was important to vote, and this is what his response was to me about whether voting for Harris or Trump. He said, well, if she don't win, I lived through the first time with Trump, I'll live through the Trump again. And when he said it, I got this question that I have, and I'm going to ask you. This is what somebody said. Someone asked me why, at my age, am I so concerned about the direction of our country? I have one word, reply, grandchildren. I don't think they understand that the three of us, and many of my listeners here, we gonna be all right. But it's the grandkids that's going to suffer the impact of that. So what do you think of that statement? Either one of you.
Well, I think it's false, very false potential. When you think about how we came up and the things that we went through to get to where we are now, that was never easy. And for them to not understand their history is the first mistake I think they're making, because based on our history and where we have come, probably the most appropriate word is, I've heard lately, is we're not going back. And we aren't going back because we fought like hell to get here. And grandkids, young black kids, and young kids in general need to have as much access to society and education as we've had in the past. And when you talk about Project 25, that is a dangerous subject for black people, period. The things that they want to do and to just the idea that you want to take women's rights away from them, that make the choices that they so deserve to make based on their bodies and their experience, is seemed to me is just terribly disappointing in the parties and the people that have that stance. So I'll back on.
I agree with you 100%. The fact that today's youth and some older people do not want to look at what has occurred in the past or look at that history, they think that because they've made it, everything's okay. But you're right. You both are right. It's not about us. It's about that 8-year-old grandchild, that 3-year-old grandchild. Those kids have no understanding of what's going on around them unless the adults in their life teach them. And the adults in their life right now, I hate to say it, they're preoccupied with living, but the wrong type of living. Okay, they don't look at how their actions affect everyone else. All they're concerned about is themselves. If they took 1 minute out of a day, and as Richard said earlier, look at what your grandparents went through, what your dad or mother went through, why would you want to keep repeating that with your kids? We need to pay attention to what's going on around us, and if we don't want to actively participate in politics, we all need to understand we have to vote, we have to put people on our school boards, we have to put people in our community that's paying attention so that it's not run by a few people. If you don't, we'll get to a situation where Johnny is thrown out of school because of his behavior, or Susie's thrown out because of what she said, and there's no one to stand up for them. The rule of law is there to protect all of us. It's not isolated where this person gets away with that and that person gets away with this. We have to pay attention. We have to participate. And as an adult, if you don't participate in the process, you're lost. Because they give you that golden parachute, you walk away from retirement. How does that help your kids? If you don't teach them to pay attention and be understanding of what's going on around them, they're already lost.
Okay, I agree with you, and there's no question that sometimes ignorance don't help. But there's enough information now that you don't have to be ignorant. You can just Google it or whatever and you can get the answer. You can probably do AI. Okay, so that was the first one. So we've now set the tone telling folks, regardless of your age, you have an impact of what's going to happen down the road. So you have a responsibility to deliver for your grandkids and other kids down the road. So this attitude is, I can get through it. Yeah, I guess you can get through it. And you all realize what happened with the road situation. It took them a long time to change it, but they changed it. It took them a long time to get the Supreme Court to rule they wanted the way they wanted to rule, but it ruled that way. So I just want you to keep that in mind. Let me ask you this other question. Now, Donald Trump has come out and said some really, really negative things about immigrants and talked about people eating animals and things like that. And there's some people that really believe that. What do you think about that? I just think it's sad. What do you think about all of a sudden now this country's trying to be split up? This country trying to be split up, and one of the things that I keep reading and hearing, and especially they say, well, they're going to take our jobs. Now, if you know, and my feeling is that we need everybody to function. Now, those of you who've been reading, and those of you who see all the ads, and some of you who think they have taken your jobs, I just want you to think about this. I want you to ask yourself when the last time that you worked in an orchard. I want you to think of the last time that many of you that go to hotels and you see who's doing the work. I want you to, there's a lot of towns where they have played a major impact, like in Ohio. Even though they played up that false rumor, and they admit it's a false rumor, look at what it has caused that community. But not only the community, just think about them children. Now they're going to be marked for life thinking about they're inferior. They're scared to go to school. Their parents are scared to shop. So think about that. And some of you who are sitting there saying, well, I just want you to keep in mind, think about slavery and what was slavery like. And the reason I'm going to be so hard today is because I want to put it in focus for us. Because I think sometimes we got it out of focus. We don't understand. We're dealing in the real world here. And there's going to be some significant decisions made that's going to have an impact on you. But I just want you for 1 minute, because my program is Did You Know? Just to think about them little Haitian kids. Ain't bothered nobody. Haven't done anything. But now they're scared to go to school. People looking at them funny. And also, and I'm going to have them comment on it, just think about some of you who drink that Kool-Aid and believe that, but yet your daughter and your sons, they play on the same football team as some of them Haitians. Some of your daughters is on the same cheerleaders, in the band. Never thought such foolishness, but we allow adults to plant that foolishness in their head. So what do you think about that? Either one of you.
Well, Donald Trump is not one of my great subjects, and not a person I even like talking about because he gets too much attention from the media, and he talks the dumbest crap you ever heard in your life. First of all, I know Donald Trump from my business in Philadelphia and my casino business, and how he stuck most of the purveyors up back in that day. But more important than that, I think there's two kind of people that kind of waver toward Donald Trump. One is not very educated and think the world owes them something, and the other is the one that's trying to destroy democracy, which is the multi-millionaires and billionaires. Those are the people that's going to vote for Trump. All right? People that have common sense and have a family and listens to this man, they will not vote for Trump. I believe Trump will have a whitewash. They will beat him so bad he's going to have to leave this country. I do not believe he has a chance to win. As much as publicity as he's getting, it's because he knows how to attract the media, and he does a good job with that. Now, as far as the Haitian is concerned, this country's always had someone to look down on and beat up on. That's who they are. And we're beat up on from the blacks, the Puerto Ricans, the Spanish, and now it's the Haitians. That's just who we are, and as much as we need that kind of labor, the people that's talking about not wanting them here are the people that it's not working anyway. All right? So it really comes to a point, who really matters in this subject? And I'm going to kind of back away because I can talk all day on this subject.
Yes, sir.
The bottom line is, when we look at the political rhetoric, the screaming and hollering, in one sense I say we're no better because we have youth out there that use a word that men of our age grew up hearing that was derogatory.
Unacceptable.
But they think it's cool. It's not. The N-word is not cool. You know the guy's name, you know the girl's name, call them by their name, give them some respect. Y'all lost how to be respectful to each other. It translates to your hip-hop frame of mind, and everything's a party, everything's a joke, and we'll get through it. No, you won't get through it. If they shut down the jobs, if they shut down every viable opportunity that you have to succeed, you ain't going anywhere. You better pay attention. You better understand what the issues are, because someone's already mapped out what they want you to have and what you don't have. And you're just smiling, laughing your way through it, listening to counterculture and not paying attention. You need to understand your surroundings that are here now. Too many people have sacrificed to get to the civil rights legislation of '64, the voting rights. Why can't you vote? Why is it that every time you turn around to go vote, they change the rules? Because they don't want you to participate. But you're not smart enough to go, oh, this is what it's all about. And I don't care if there's snow coming down, rain coming down. I'm getting out there and I'm putting my voice in it. You got to pay attention. It's not about, I did my 9 hours of work, let me go get me a drink and let me tune out. The ones that are affected are our kids. And if you don't make a way for them, nobody will. And that's the problem. Yeah, as Richard said earlier, the three of us, we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning. We try to give you information, but you don't want to listen. And that's the problem. Listen. You don't have to take everything we say verbatim, because then you got Google, you got AI, you can research all that and look at it. You can look at the timelines of the way things have happened. But you got to be willing to listen. And too often, you don't want to listen. When somebody tries to give you some information, yeah, I heard about it, I know all about it. But your actions you don't follow through. You should at least come back to the people who are giving you information and have a conversation with them on what they told you. Please join in and help your kids of the future and your kids that are here now.
I think I wanted to make this program a program of ideas, program of your opinions, but at the same time I made a decision this was going to be a program of what I call accountability. And when I say accountability, I am troubled by many things. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. We had this devastating weather down in Georgia and North Carolina and blah, blah, blah. And Donald Trump comes on and says, well, the President of the United States and the Vice President of the United States, they didn't do anything. Now that's what he said. They didn't do anything for this storm. But two things happened. Of course, the President came on and said he did call the governor of Georgia the night before. But Donald just throws statements out there. And people believe that. But here's what you don't understand, and this is where I want you to start to do your research. Now, we all know that Donald Trump was the President of the United States at one time. Donald Trump's proposed was cutting the federal disaster response by 58% in his last budget. See, you didn't know that. He didn't tell you that, because he don't tell you. All he just gets on and just throws things out there, and he hopes they stick. And I've decided tonight I'm going to call him on some of those things, because I really believe at this point most of you know which way you're going to vote. Some of you who say you're undecided and you need to learn more, you need to learn more about the Vice President. Well, what do you know about Donald Trump? And I think you know a lot about him. And that's probably why I'm gearing on this program, because I just think it's so important, because we don't talk about it. And so I'm going to talk about it because I think that's important. We're going to hit a lot of things today, but we have to stand up, and I have to stand up. And one of the things that bothered me is some of the derogatory things that he says about a lot of us. A lot of us. When he talk about the Asians, the Puerto Ricans, all these groups, and I just want to get your opinion on it. All these groups he's been throwing out, and all of you are walking around saying, I don't know about who I should vote for. And I always say that if you don't vote your vested interest, shame on you. And down the road, in 2025 project all comes to tuition and stuff, I want all of you to look in the mirror. Don't look the day after election and say, I thought. No, you have the responsibility to go out there and do your due diligence. You have the responsibility to go out there to vote. You have the responsibility to get your neighbors, your cousins, your friends to vote. Because this is a critical one. And what tells you it's critical? By what language, the way he talks to us. And what he says about us. And this is then I'm going to move on, because I'm going to let my group talk. The fact that the kinds of things that he calls her and saying that she's not bright, the saying that she's got some mental issues, as an insult. It's an insult to any black man that would hear that. We have to learn to defend. Right is right. And I'll leave you with this, and I'm going to have them talk. She is smarter than him. She is tougher than him. She's more caring than him. She's more capable than him. And she is stronger than him. She is better than him.
I don't need to say anymore.
Okay.
Because I absolutely agree with you. But I also would like to take it a step further.
Sure.
Not only just her, but black women in general is doing more for society than ever we've had in their existence. They are carrying the ball, and she is a powerful woman, very smart, capable woman. She didn't get to where she got to by being false, not lying, and not taking care of business. Kamala Harris is one of the strongest, most qualified people that we have ever had going into the presidency.
It's funny. It's funny to me how we can sit back, where they can sit back, people can sit back and say she's not qualified, she doesn't have a plan, she doesn't have this. But yet and still, she has all the degrees, she has all the work experience, and she has a plan. Not once have I heard the former president come up with a plan to do anything for anyone. It's all about the grift for him and his family. Come on. Let's go one step further. For those of you who have a felony on your record, is life fair to you? Not at all. He gets to walk around and do whatever he wants. He can even vote with his felony. You can't. So there's two different Americas. One that doesn't look like us and one that looks like him. When are you going to wake up and pay attention to what's going on around you? If you don't, as Richard said, don't look in the mirror and go, oh, I didn't think he was going to win. I thought somebody else was going to vote for him, that it was covered. No. Your responsibility is to get out there and make sure your vote counts. If you got to stand there all day, get there. This is very important because you don't want to go back to before Jim Crow laws were enacted, and when they were enacted, it was terrible. You had the Congress right after the Civil War that had the most black legislators there. They put Jim Crow in and got rid of them, redistricted the whole 9 yards. Y'all need, you people, us, we need to pay attention. Every right that you think you have right now is going away.
In jeopardy.
It's in jeopardy. It's going away.
All right, got another topic here. I told you I'm gonna. I keep hearing that a lot of young black men are talking about they don't want to vote for her because of how she handled herself as district attorney in San Francisco. Well, I got 2 points to say. A lot of you shouldn't have even been in the criminal justice system at all anyway. And number 2, we keep asking everybody what's the plans. Everybody wants to know what's her plans, but Donald don't tell you what his plans is. He'll tell you he's going to do cut taxes, and nobody says, okay, well, how you going to pay for it? But I got one that he brought up. The other day he brought up one. He said, 1 rough hour will end theft. Retail theft. He said, give us 1 hour. I'm going to straighten out retail theft in America. Just give me 1 hour. Who you think he talking to? Those of you young blacks is walking around talking about, well, I don't know if I'm going to vote for cause, law and order. Law and order is law and order, and we want law and order. I keep telling everybody, we want policing in our community. I get upset when I hear older people say they're scared to go out the house after 6 o'clock. They should not be held hostage. Nobody should be held hostage. And so therefore, my attitude is that everything he wants to do is act like everything is a crime. I saw a post off the other day of Donald Trump, and what did it have on it? Talked about immigration, talk about crime, scaring people. Scaring people. We don't need to scare people. We need to come together, work together. Like I said, and I will keep saying, it's just amazing to me. You go to a football game, or you watch football, or you watch sports on TV or whatever, and you see young people there together. No matter what ethnic group, no matter what, they're all together. But yet we have these older adults that are continuing to spread that foolishness. So what do you... One of y'all, go ahead.
The part that bothers me is we were brought here as black people, and we're considered immigrants. They treat us just as bad. But every immigrant group that came before us and after us is doing a lot better than we are right now. So you want to sit back and not participate in the process. You want to scare your community people to the point, as Richard said, they don't want to come out after 6 o'clock, or they're a victim of your not wanting to work because you drank the Kool-Aid and you think the hip-hop lifestyle is what it's all about. It's not there. For you to get somewhere in life, you got to put your foot forward and work. Now, if you want to see someone successful, look at Mrs. Harris, who will soon be the President of the United States. She got there by hard work. Nobody gave anything to her. If you think somebody gave something to her, there's something wrong with your view. Somebody's telling you the wrong information. America, for people of color, has been one of working hard, accepting less. That's what you got to pay attention to. You can be the brightest, smartest person in the world. You'll never achieve anything unless you learn how to work with other people. And that's what we need to get back to. What your grandmom told you, stop that, boy. You bring attention to yourself. Stop bringing attention to yourself.
Okay. Sure.
My only thing, I believe, is that in order to have any success, real success in society, is you got to have a dream, and you have to have determination. Because if you lock in that dream, sooner or later, there is nothing in society, even the people that is against you, can stop you from succeeding. But you must have a dream, and you must work toward it. Both of those are the sign of real success, period.
I don't want some of the audience to misinterpret this program. This program is to be honest and be real and be frank, because I believe I have the responsibility, I've taken it upon myself to shake up some of the electorate, to get them moving out there to make sure that they participate in the electoral process that's coming up. I mean, but at the same time, I like to call it as I see it, because I think it's very important. You know, I'm amazed that I keep reading some negative things, which I'm very troubled by. I mean, I know that already it's been set up that the election might get stolen. Now, I'm just going to ask the audience this. We've had a lot of presidents. Until Donald Trump became the first president that we've had all this confusion by. I just want you to think about it. Just think about it, ladies and gentlemen. Also, I just want you to remember Al Gore in the chat. He conceded because he was a part of the democracy and the democratic process that we believe in. So my question is, why after all this time it seemed to work, and then all of a sudden when Donald becomes a participant, there is confusion. We never had this confusion before. But why we have so much confusion? Why was it that he couldn't accept the election the way it was? He thought somebody cheated him, somebody that stole from him, which to me bothers me to the utmost. And I just hope that all of you think about that. I'm trying to get you to think about your choices. Just think about your choices. Because America is everybody's country. America is supposed to work for everyone. It always and hasn't, but it was going up the ladder to do that. And so we need to continue to grow that ladder to make America be about everyone. As you know, it's funny when you see all the, because all the ads are negative, ladies and gentlemen. There's nothing positive. Everything is so negative. You know, negative, negative, negative. And so, what do you think that our campaign should be about? Campaigns, period. How do you see the elections this year in our country?
Well, first of all, I think that when you talk about Donald Trump, everything that he says to you and everything he accuses someone else of doing, he is already doing it. Everything he says, he is doing it somewhere, somehow. And I believe that he, in the first election, stole that. And that's where this all is coming from. I truly believe this man is a part of it. I don't believe that anyone tried to assassinate him either. I believe this was put on because he was falling in the polls. And every time the polls drop on his side, something fantastic happens for him. He accused somebody of doing something. Donald Trump is the worst human being we've ever had in this position. And I think we have to call him out every time it's necessary. And another thing that happens with Donald Trump, and I'm talking about Ms. Harris and Mr. Walsh, never do they ever accuse this man of doing something that he hasn't said he done himself. Every accusation he makes of them is something he makes up. So there's no verities there between what he says and what they say. He makes his stuff up. They say what he say he's done. That's the bottom line.
Okay, Chester, you could say what you want to say. As I said on this program, each person has their opinion of how they perceive things, and so each person here this is how they feel or how they perceive it. But it's just interesting.
People would pay attention to what each candidate's saying they will do for you. Hands down, you ain't voting for Donald Trump. He ain't doing a thing for you. Never will he do anything for you. And that's all you need to understand. You are not going to be better. And do you think Make America Great Again includes you? No, it does not. It's to everybody who has something, gets something out of it. The folks that don't have anything, you're going to pay more. You're going to work harder. He wants to get rid of overtime, to get paid for overtime. He wants to go to a 6-day work week with more hours and no overtime. Come on, guys. Affordable Care Act. What Republican administration gave you health care? What administration said to you existing conditions, insurance companies, y'all need to pay for it? They're making money. You're going to get left behind. Pay attention. It's a clear choice. Growing up, I watched polling. In my community, you went to the poll, you walked in the door, everybody knew who you were. You live on such and such a street, your mom and dad is so and so and so and so. Yeah, granted, in the big cities, that may be hard. But come on, suppressing the vote, not allowing you, because you work 2 jobs, to mail in an application or a vote. We got to figure it out, folks. And voting Republican right now is not the way to go.
Not a good choice.
Let me ask you this other. We're talking. So, let me ask you this here. What do you think our responsibility in this election is in the community? You keep reading all. I'm only saying this because we read polls and we hear stuff every day. Now we already know that nobody talks. They always say that she doesn't talk about policy, but we all forget that when she debated him, and remember when health care came up. Remember, they've been trying to dismantle health care for a long time. But then he said, well, I'm going to change it. I'm going to make it better. And they said, how? And after all this time, he couldn't. And the reason he couldn't, because he has no plan. So let me ask you this. Why is it so hard for her and for him when he says, I'm going to cut taxes. I'm going to do tariffs. If you cut taxes somewhere, that money has to come from somewhere else. But nobody asked him, where's he going to make it up at? It's just like he just throws things out, and that's been his playbook for all these years. That's been his playbook. And so that's why I decided on this program that I was going to throw it back in his face. Because we don't, nobody's holding him accountable, but yet they keep saying, well, you know, she hasn't told us what her policies is. She hasn't told us what her policies is. And the other thing is, and I want to ask you this question, I'm going to let you open it up. When we look at vice presidents, and I understand he ties that to Joe Biden, but then I ask myself, and I've asked myself this a couple times about Dan Quayle. Did you hold? I'm pretty sure that Mike Pence doesn't take full responsibility all of Donald Trump's behavior, even though he was the vice president. So why do we make her different?
She's a woman. One of the reasons.
Because she's a woman.
She's one of the reasons. The other reason is that she's a black woman. That's another reason. And well, Barack Obama went through as much as this as she is going through right now.
That is correct.
So she is just so much more powerful, and they do not hold him accountable under any circumstances. That's the issue we have. Why they have allowed this man to come up and said things like, "Well, I'm considering a program for the health program."
Yeah.
And he's considering a program. He had 4 years, 7 years now, and that's all he's doing is considering. He has no answer for nothing, and they have allowed him to get away with it. And they are trying to make her come to the conclusion that she doesn't have a program. She has a program and everything, and she's explained more than one day that he's done the entire term he's been running for election.
The problem in America has always had a problem with women in positions of power and minorities in position of power. They want to keep it white male, calling the shots. And I don't say that to be derogatory towards white males. I'm just simply saying what I see. Okay. In America, we have to understand that people in power want to keep things the way they are for a select few individuals. And if you don't participate in the process, you're lost. You're totally lost. If you don't go out there and vote for a woman who has a plan to help you, then you deserve everything you're getting. And I don't say that lightly. We have an opportunity to elect a person as president that's concerned about everyone, not just a small group of people.
Well, I guess you would say, would you say this? I would say this. She's probably more closely identified with us in terms of our own living, in terms of what her mother went through. in terms of going to school and trying to figure it all out. I mean, she didn't grow up with a silver spoon. So when you think about it, she's probably more closely aligned to you than you want to admit that she's closely aligned to you. So I would just say this here, that we have this responsibility on this election coming up. And, there's some other things that we need to talk about as well. We need to talk about the House and the Senate. Let's go up to the U.S. Senate, realizing that doesn't make a difference. The president is very important, but the U.S. Senate is very important too.
Absolutely.
Because the president doesn't make, because if you don't do what you need to do, then you'll find out that the House or the Senate, you don't get anything done. And I think we've realized that, especially on the Supreme Court. I think the Supreme Court is very important this time coming up. And who's going to be the president is probably going to pick one or two new Supreme Court justices. And I think you already found out what happened this last go around. So you got to think about that. And I mean, of course, in Pennsylvania, we're looking at Bob Casey, that has been a U.S. Senator, and I have been very open that I have worked for him, and I've worked for him. So I think the highest of him, when they talk about him as radical, I don't know who they talking about, because that's not the Bob Casey that I've known, and I've known him a long time, and I ain't never thought he was radical. Sometimes I thought he was a little bit more conservative, but I ain't never thought he was radical. So what do you think that we should do in terms of making sure that people need to understand that it's not just the U.S. Senate. We like to get your viewpoints on the House of Representatives, because we know that if the Democrats don't control the House, then we're right back where we are. We're dysfunctional like they are now, passing stopgap measures and things of that nature. And as I said earlier, the Supreme Court was the U.S. Senate, and we can talk about that. And so it's important when we talk about Congress. So, when you look at the Bob Cases and the Janelle Stelsons, and you look at those, the importance of those. But I think across not only the state, but all over, you need to look at who you put in there. And if you're going to vote for them, and then it's crucial, naturally down ballot after that, because you do have the Attorney General, you do have the Treasurer and the Auditor General as well. They all play a very important role in state government, as well as other local municipality things. So how do you think we should get involved in politics? That's what I want to talk about. And when I say get involved in politics, I'm not just talking about the election today, but get people to start preparing to run for office and represent our vested interests.
Well, one of the things, I think the first thing I should talk about is how do you vote in this election this year. And I say to you, the only way you can vote is straight party ticket. You got to go down. If you want to get the House and the Senate in, you got to go straight party ticket. Other than that, splitting the votes at this time is just a waste of energy, and it's possible to lose out on some of the Senate and the House.
Okay, that's a good point. Because if you don't get the House and the Senate, it doesn't make a difference who the president is, because you're not going to get anything done.
Right.
And adding to that is this: when you're sitting at home at night, bring your kids in and explain to them the political process. All too often, we don't say to kids, there's an election and this is what needs to transpire. Ask your kids what happened in school the other day. So you pick that school board member who aligns with your views. Okay? We need to go from the school board to community to the House to the Senate on up. We need to pay attention to all local races to make sure that we understand what the community needs and how it's affecting you. It's okay, yeah, we're good on the football field, we're good on the basketball field, but when it comes to your living arrangements, because you didn't take time to understand who your school board directors were, you now have a school board that does whatever they want to do. And it may not benefit your child. And that's a big issue. Because if you don't pay attention to that early, you could be living in a community that's a police state, where someone has decided you can't have rights, you can't do anything, and you don't want that. So to echo the sentiment, all races are important, but if you want to get something done right now, please vote. Please vote.
I agree. Do you think that taking where we are now, we need to start building a political process? And when I mean developing a political process, because, you know, this election will come and go, and there will be other elections. So we need to start developing a process to start getting people now, after this election, to run for public office. A lot of you do a lot of talking, so it's time for you to step up to the plate. The other thing that you said that I thought was very interesting. Maybe we need to, and maybe some of you haven't thought about it, maybe we need to explain to a lot of young people about the process. And what I mean by that is, just think about that. All these ads, negative. Here is your son and daughter who is 12, 13, 14 years old. You're being exposed to all of these negative ads and being exposed to them, and nobody talks to them and tell them that a lot of this is nothing but political goobity gall, because you know you're trying to get somebody one or the other. Do you think that we owe young people a responsibility to not only explain that to them, because remember now, we don't teach civics in high school anymore or wherever, so nobody don't know much of anything.
That's the real reason.
I agree 100%, because I've had that conversation with kids. You know, they're like, well, what does that mean? And I'm like, and you lay it out to them, explain to them that what they call fact check on these guys saying things, you need to do, when someone tells you something, you need to go look it up. Don't take their word from that political ad or announcement or whatever at face value. Go check on it. It doesn't kill you. But parents, when you're sitting down at dinner or whenever you see something on TV, when they finish, you look at your kids and go, hopefully you understand that was an ad and this is what's really going on. Yes, we have a responsibility to tell our kids about the process.
I mean, I think that's good when we talk about that, because I'm going to bet you half of them don't even know there's 3 branches of government, because nobody's never told them there were 3 branches of government.
The school is just walking away from a lot of stuff that we used to be taught in school. And we need to go back and find a form that we can reach children with. That's our issue right now. What is the form that you can come up, that you can reach a half a dozen kids at one time to talk to them about things like this? The school has always been the #1 place to go. And they're cutting programs left and right, keeping books out of their kids' hand. There got to be a system that we have to develop ourselves to bring in kids and explain to them about what is going on in society, the government, and voting and that type of thing, because a lot of parents aren't getting to them.
Well, I agree, but at the same time, here's my other issue. It's like history. It's our job to tell our history. We waiting on somebody else to tell our job of history. And we need to do that. You know, I don't even know if half the young people know what the electoral college is. What's it mean? How did it come about? And how it's going to play a major role in this election. And if you look at it, all the red states, do your research, ladies and gentlemen, and you look at their economics, where they are, and you look at the blue, but yet certain states are going to determine who's going to be the president of the United States. and most kids don't even probably know what electoral college. So you all agree we owe an obligation to train, to teach our kids, to talk to them, and our kids have to learn to be curious as well. Just like you were able to quote statistics in terms of who scored the touchdown, who hit the home run over the wall, who did X, Y, Z. There's certain things about life that we have to do.
Well, I think we're lacking leadership in our communities, period.
Okay.
That's what we really need, someone
Okay.
that can stand up and people will listen to. And how to get a forum to bring kids together. The school has always been our go-to. And we still need somewhere to go that we can create a forum and create the kind of things that we know they need to have.
Well, also in our day, we had the church.
Absolutely.
You know,
at the
kids
church.
they don't want to hear anything about church. You know, and that's a problem. Okay, the church teaches you to listen, to ask questions, and to have adults provide them with the direction. That's lacking. So when you take away a form in school to do something, now you don't have anything in the community that does anything to give them direction. And as parents, our responsibility is to make them understand that this is a process. You need to learn the process, enhance the process as you go forward, so that you can learn what life's about. If you don't participate in school and you don't participate in church, and you leave all your information that comes to you from social media, you're lost.
In trouble.
So let me ask you this, because time is running. So if I asked you, each one of you, to leave the audience with something, Chester, you start first. What would you leave the audience to think about or what they should do?
I would ask you to learn your history of politics in America. You can go out there, AI, and you can get a timeline of legislation that has affected you in America. And from that, you can do more research, or at least provide that information to kids so that they can go look.
Okay.
I would like to see you, Richard, try to bring more leadership people to the table. That we can sit down and talk and have a round table about how we can help our own youth, how we can do more to attract their attention, learn them about the different government facilities and how to vote, how to go out and work in the community, because that's what we're really missing. We don't have any what they call ground people on the ground doing things that we need to be done. We are lacking a lot of stuff, and every time something is lost, it's lost in our community. Regardless of what it is, when they take it from everyone else, we lose more than they do.
So
We got to find a way to do better.
So what you're saying, I guess the whole thing is that we need to all learn to work together. I guess we need to develop plans, but we need to also be accountability in our own communities. So I'm saying to all of you out there, we need to get together. We need to run candidates. We need to support one another, whether it's politically, economically, because the plight of where we're going
It's not good.
is on us. And so those of you who sit around, got a whole lot of negative things to say, it's time for you to step up and do something. I always say this, woe me, but we have to take some responsibility on. And so I will say this to all of you. It's a very critical time in our lives. And I don't want to hear it anymore. People my age or whatever say it don't make no difference because we're going to get through it. Because it's not really about us. It's about those that will follow us. And history will either be kind to us or history will not. And they will all know what we did when we had the chance to do it and which direction that we went in. I I want to remind all of you that don't forget the debates on tonight at 9 o'clock. But at the same time, those of you need to get out to vote. Those of you, you're not sure, find out if you're registered to vote. Find out if they done purged you off the voting registration. Find out if you have to bring ID. Find all those things out. Don't wait till election day. Have a map. Have a strategy. Because you may be the one that make a difference in America. Because remember, it only takes one. And just think, you might be the one that will make the defining decision of where America is going in the next month. So have a good evening. As I said before, I'm going to have people on just to talk. This was just to get their viewpoints. Everybody got their viewpoints. Some of you agree with some of the things that Chester said. Some of you may agree with some of the things that Sam said. Some of you may agree with me, or you may not agree with anybody. But we need to have these kinds of conversations. Because if we don't have these kinds of conversations, then we won't know what other people's views are. And that's the good thing. So remember, ladies and gentlemen, this program was more about just talking, seeing what people see. But at the same time, I want people to know we're going to start holding everybody accountable. Okay, we need to hold them accountable. We want people to vote in our vested interest. If they don't vote in our vested interest, then we need to vote them out. I don't care what you are. Vote them out if they're not for our interests. Because we all care about where this country is and where it's going. As I said before, please, please, please register to vote. Do the right thing. I want to thank both of you for coming on. As I said earlier, it's good to get other people's viewpoints. But one of the things that I know they did say tonight, we have a responsibility to teach our kids, explain to them what's going on. Because ignorance is a terrible thing. And if we keep doing this, they don't know anything because I hear them talk. Because they do no research. They hear somebody say something for 5 minutes and they think it's gospel. So thank you, and we will be seeing you in 2 weeks. And we'll be talking politics again. As I said, we're going to talk politics to the end. Thank you.
Very good.
I'm glad you put that on there. That was good. That was good you put Harris on there.
Very good, Richard.
Oh, there'll be somebody that's going to text